I've been working on a couple new things lately that are like working with gouache on top of acrylics, under acrylics, just kind of working with this gouache medium to put color into figure painting. So I thought I would just kind of talk about my experiments. I sent a photo album to the email group. I don't know if a couple people saw it. Mike, you probably saw it. I painted this figure from Dungeons and Dragons. It's an iconic beholder monster. Everyone, they fear it. It's on the cover of the books. I painted that for a childhood friend of mine, so I don't have the model anymore because I had to give it away. But in that, I kind of had this idea that I would work with underpainting. I wanted it to be this like scary, fleshy meatball looking thing with a bunch of eyes, and it came out really freaky and cool. But to show you guys, I did another model out of, this was like a 3D print failure that somebody had sent me with like some other stuff. And people who 3D print models, when they get failures, I think they don't want to throw them in the trash. And so the people just end up with it. So this model, you guys can touch it, look at it up close. I didn't clean it up, fill the holes or anything like that. I just slapped some paint on it so that you guys can kind of see this technique. The problem with gouache is that it is water reactivatable, and so that's a good thing and a bad thing. Everything is sealed up except for the brown on this model, and I was kind of curious to see how long can I wait and it's still able to be reactivated. So I have a feeling that if I take water to it today, I can strip this brown that's on the bottom and on the stem off.
Yes, you can.
So from experience, how long have you waited? Like months?
It doesn't matter.
Years?
You can always activate your water hole.
Sometimes with
They have to be
enamel,
completely clear coat.
sometimes with enamel and oil, it will cure a little bit more after a period of time, and you can kind of, if you forget about it, your window will close on you to do your reductive process. But with the gouache, it doesn't seem to close ever. Okay, so for me, this is a book. What's the artist's name? I wrote it down here. Tagawa, Hiroshi Tagawa. He's a Japanese modeler. This is a book that Kenny used to have, but we no longer have, but it like lives rent-free in my head. And I think about this book all the time. And he paints female models, seemingly predominantly, exclusively, yeah. And does he go by Pygmalion on the?
He goes by Pygmalion
online. So this book was really eye-opening in that he uses this different process where he does oils over acrylic and he does an underpainting method for colored zones of the face. And I will talk about all that if you've never heard of this kind of stuff before. But it's got this like subsurface scattering element to it where it feels like you're looking through the skin and seeing the blood vessels and all this different color. It's a really cool painting method. Except I don't mix well with toxic paints, and especially the mineral spirits that you have to use to strip oil paints. And so I'm kind of looking for another way. And I think it was Mike turned us on to using gouache for pin washing and things like that. And I was like, well, can I sort of use it like an oil paint substitute? And so this is the abbreviated Pygmalion method is what I'm going to call this. These pictures came out a little bit dark. We had to ask our friend that we sold you sold the book to for pictures of the book. So what he does is he uses an acrylic, like this magenta kind of pink color, and then he paints over it in this crazy clown-looking oil paints, and then blends it all together. And eventually, it's the way that the colors interact make it look very lifelike.
The magenta is acrylic though, Natalie?
Yeah, the magenta is acrylic. So he does a magenta base and then kind of like puts his his oil colors over it. So he's got like a peach looking, it's an orange plus white mix, white, blues, more reds like in your cheeks, your nose area, and he'll put it in the lips eventually. And he blends it all together. There's greens up at the hairline because you can see the hair follicles just a little bit underneath the skin.
It's freaky to see it early on, and then at the end, it's like, how are you gonna get to a human face? But
So that's why, yeah, that's why that book stands out to me, because that was the first time I saw this creepy clown makeup on a model, and I go, that turns into that's crazy. And so this is kind of what it's mimicking are color zones of the face. And there's color zones also in other things, it's the hands, but it's this, you will see this when you see, like, if you go to the shows and you see these really well painted, like, there's this guy out of Cleveland, he paints the Civil War busts, I can't remember his name, but you'll see the color zones when you know where to look for. You'll see the yellow, you'll see the red zone, and then the blue. And you'll even see it on female models, but the blue is like just not as pronounced. But that's like your 5 o'clock shadow, your blush, and then the forehead zone. And then there's subzones, so like under the eyes, you get like more blue because you have more more veins carrying your deoxygenated blood away and things like that. So I'm just running through this real fast, and you can see like even on the hands and the feet, these color zones popping up where you have this magenta kind of color sitting underneath this flesh color. So then my question was like, can I do this with water instead? And on the right is my underpainting, which I did with gouache, which I think you can do. It doesn't have to be gouache. I did gouache because it's easy to push around. If you make a mistake, you can change your mind. If when I was working on the beholder, it has a bunch of these arm tentacles. It's really actually difficult to work around, and just a pain in the butt, really. So you will be putting paint where you don't necessarily want it, and so the gouache was just more forgiving to push the paint around and clean it up. So gouache, if you are not familiar with gouache yet, it is sometimes referred to as opaque watercolor. It uses the same binder as watercolor paints, a lot of the same pigments as watercolor paints. It can be a little bit different than what you'll find in acrylics and enamel paints. It reactivates with water, which is what I'm using it for. And it usually dries matte, but there are some pigments that tend to have a more like satin finish to them. And you'll see that in acrylic paints as well. Some pigments just like don't matte down very well. There is another product called acrylic gouache. It is not the same. So if you're going out to the art store or you make an order online, you're like, that gouache sounds really cool, and you order acrylic gouache, you are not going to get the same thing. Acrylic gouache uses the same, like some of the same binders that are in acrylic paint, and it's not going to reactivate. So it's going to act more like your regular acrylics, just like with a more matte finish, and the pigments, it's a little bit more pigment loaded, I think, and so it's really good for some things, but it's not going to be good for this. And then so this is off of a blog. You can see the top one is acryl or acrylic gouache. In between the lines at the bottom, they go through that with a wet brush. So you can see it does not reactivate. In the middle is traditional gouache. So when you drag the wet brush through it, it is going to reactivate and smear. And then at the bottom is acrylic paint, which is also, like, as you know, waterproof when it's dry.
Natalie, what about just watercolor paint? Same manufacturer, like Master Touch or whatever.
I think
make a gouache, which is like you said, flat. But then there's the watercolor version, which is not flat. It's more translucent and a little bit of a sheen, we could say.
Yeah. What's the question? Like,
well, have you tried using that?
No, I probably will. The gouache is like, Sometimes it has a white added to it. Like back in the day, before they called it gouache, they would add china white to it, or like a zinc white or something to boost its opacity. And that's why it's called like the opaque watercolor. I wanted the right balance between, I guess, readability and opacity, but that is on the list to try, because I do have a watercolor set. I have dabbled in watercolor, like traditional painting a little bit, and I'm getting more familiar with it. So it's on the list to try. We can definitely do that.
I mean, it comes in a tube just like these, except it's
A
not
tube or a
white.
can.
It's similar stuff. It's just, I think the gouache was a little more.
It is.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's that, do you want it to show up a little bit more, or do you want the transparency? It's like pick whatever you think is, I think they're both options on the table, for sure. Okay, so underpainting. This could mean like a lot of different things. So underpainting is generally some kind of pre-shading. That's what you guys might know it as. We might, in mini painting, like for gaming, we would call this a zenithal, even though we don't do it from the zenith all the time. We still call it a zenithal. It's basically value and tone mapping, even in like traditional painting. It's where you get your values figured out, or your composition figured out, before you apply all of your colors. And this has been used since like the Renaissance, basically. There's been underpainting used in traditional painting, either through grisaille, which is just the black and white painting that they would glaze color over, or like verdaccio, which was used by like the old masters, which was green underpainting for any kind of flesh, like skin on fresco paintings and stuff like that. And so for me, what I wanted to do was do underpainting, but with the color zones of the face, and see would this turn out. It's almost like Pygmalion's method, but kind of backwards. Since he's doing the color over top of this underpainting of magenta, can I do the color zones and then put my flesh color on top? So this is what I was trying to do. So my first thing, this is the zenithal. I had 2 of these scrap models. I decided that doing 2 was too much work, and so I only wanted to do 1. And I picked my favorite, which was the mouth. And so this is basically pre-shading. It was black primer and an off-white that I did with the airbrush to get this effect on the pumpkin part of it. I did the little tiny figure eights with the airbrush. That's how you get that like variation. People have asked how I did that on the frog model that I did, and the answer is just figure eights with the airbrush. Get in close and draw figure eights.
How big now would you say your figure eights are?
It depends on
Quarter inch?
if you want the color to be more concentrated, you make them smaller so that they overlap more. If you want it to have more of the undercolor kind of showing through, then you just make them bigger. So
leave the eye of the eights open?
Yeah, and then it's mostly wherever it crosses in the figure eight, that's going to be where you get the most. I have a video of me doing the zenithal that Kenny tried. I did try to video this entire process. It didn't come out. My first time videoing, and I have a lot to learn. But you can see, you just keep the model moving, and you just, you put more eights, make it cross where you want the color more. But a lot of it is you just kind of you just move that thing and you just let it paint itself.
So in your example, you black primer and then had an off-white that you made the figure eights.
Yep, exactly. And so this is the color zone underpainting, and so this is the beholder model at its craziest stage on the left, and then the screaming pumpkin on the right. And so basically it was, you can see on the beholder, it's that dark zone under the eye. This is all blue. Each one of these tendrils, I already got that has a magenta color, which I like using magenta more than red. That's just my personal preference. The red looks more bloody. The magenta looks more alive to me, and that's what I like. So here, and then in the gums, the mouth is shaded like a blue purple color just to kind of give it some depth, I guess. Same thing here, blue in the mouth. The gums are, I used like a cool purple color. I was messing around here. And then I put yellow, because I knew at this point I'm gonna paint the pumpkin blue, because we always get these pumpkins every year called blue doll pumpkins that are, that's what we get from the farm, instead of our traditional jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, and I like them. So I thought I would make those. I did not get the color right, so I'm gonna move on. Oh, I speckled it too. So this is just all the speckling. It adds texture and variation. That's just taking a wet brush and the toothpick or slamming it against another brush. If you guys have ever done mud effects, that's all that is.
And at this stage, this is all dirt paint.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, that's all. It's all with that's gouache. I think you could use acrylic. Oil, I probably wouldn't, because if you're gonna put acrylic over oil because of the drying time difference, as the oil cures, it can crack the acrylic. So you usually don't want to put acrylic over oils. But the gouache seems to be okay. The worst thing that happens is if you have the gouache on too thick, it's just like frosting with a matte varnish. That matting agent seems to like collect and pool up, and you'll get weird frosting. And so here, I put, this is my skin mix, by the way, and all these colors, but it's mostly just mixing an orange, adding in a pale color. This is Titan Mars Pale, and these are transparents, golden airbrush transparents. This is not transparent, but still an airbrush paint. I just like these since I started using them. And then I adjust, I always add a little bit of green, and then I'll adjust with blue or yellow or red, however I think it needs to go. That's how I mix my flesh color. And then, yeah, this is probably the craziest, is masking it off with some Mr. Hyde and Skinny Plug. Yeah, that stuff is great.
Mr. what?
Mr.
Mr.
Hyde,
Hyde's,
like H.
like Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh, interesting, okay,
A bunch of companies make it.
okay.
Yeah, I hate masking, but I'll mask with this stuff. So it does sharper lines than you'd think it would.
It's a liquid.
It's a putty,
It's
it's kind of like
silly.
silly putty, a little bit, it doesn't leave a residue behind or anything like that. You can stick it on, you can like sculpt it into place and stuff, it's pretty.
And so after all the masking and the spraying on the right, so that's the colors airbrush over this underpainting. It's, you can kind of see it. It's kind of more blue-green down here. I, of course, like filled the mouth because I didn't want to spray the flesh color in the mouth. And it's a little bit more orangey yellow up there. All of this yellow in the pumpkin is now green, which is what I wanted it to be. And so that's where we got there. It's subtle though. And so that was, when it comes to the underpainting, so this is my conclusion. It is, I'm not giving up on it yet, but I don't know if it's worth it in every application. But I'm not giving up that. And then, so here's the rest of the process is now doing the gouache on top of the acrylic. And so the thing with the gouache is, since you can keep reactivating it, once you do a color and you say like, okay, it needs to be deeper, I need more color, I need another layer, right? I'm building these like thin glazes. Well, if you go over it you might reactivate it. You probably will reactivate it. If your brush is too wet and you go over it because you're feathering out something else, you're going to reactivate it. This is a good thing sometimes. It's a total pain other times. Like if you're adjusting colors, you can start introducing like tide marks, or you'll just straight up erase work that you already did. And so what you have to keep doing is like you decide, I can't do any more, now I'm gonna lock it down. You put a layer of varnish over it. The varnish you pick is gonna decide how much the next layer of gouache is gonna grab. So if you do a matte varnish, the gouache is gonna grab and stain a lot harder, just like with using enamels. If you use a gloss varnish, it's gonna run, and it'll be easier to clean up, and maybe even too easy to clean up, kind of issues. So I usually just go in the middle with the satin varnish, and that's where I pick.
What type of orange do you use?
I fully subscribe to VMS satin varnish. That is, since I started using that, that's the only varnish I would use.
And is that an acrylic one?
Yes.
Is it ready to spray or?
Yep,
you-
yep.
Okay,
It seems like it's not. It's really thick, but it sprays just fine.
okay.
It's a tricky one. You don't have to thin it, and it's by far like my favorite varnish. I've tried a lot of varnishes.
It's a Polish company, make sure you buy it in the summer. In the springs.
Night shift does armor stuff, but he usually has a 10% discount at BMS.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for somebody that wants to order, go look up night shift video or
Look.
discount.
We buy it from Mitch Toy.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
yeah. I think they're like one of the resellers in the United States.
Yeah.
Mhm. Back before they carried it, it was a lot harder to get. So these are screen grabs for the video, but this is, have you guys ever heard of feathering okay, so you guys are familiar with that, okay. So in here, I'm on top, I'm just blobbing on the color. Here I'm working on more blue under the chin. Here I'm working on green or blue or whatever over by like the jowls, whatever we want to call it. Blobbing on the color and then just dabbing on it and working it out. And just making it look nice, pushing it around. I'm gonna scroll it. Okay, so that was number one. And then the other way is to glaze it on. So this is like a really thin application. There's a lot of creases and like, I don't know, wrinkles, things up in the top here. And then I'm dabbing it off with a sponge over there. Sometimes you don't need to wet the sponge that much. And then when it's shallow detail, if the sponge is too wet, you're just gonna wipe it all away. You gotta do it again. So that was number one. I think at this point, I've actually varnished the model twice because after I sprayed the transparents, the golden transparents are really, really glossy. And I think I hit it with the satin to knock the gloss down and kind of unifies that everything's the same kind of texture before I start doing the gouaches. Okay, so then at the end, there's satin varnish number two, and I've done the details. So another thing is, I see people online, they get really frustrated with their painting, and they'll send a whip photo and be like, why does my stuff suck? And you're like, well, because you haven't painted the details yet. And the detail painting really makes a lot of the difference. So this is your before and after, even just painting the teeth or brightening up the color in the mouth makes a huge difference on just the overall impression of the model. So that's the point with that. Oh yeah, so that was after first layer of post wash, I don't know how we want to call it. And satin varnish on 2, scroll up please. And then we go at it again. And so now where I had put green on top, now I'm putting red on top, and this is red, not magenta, I think. And I'm working on, I don't know, this like meat color, what do we want to call it, under the thing. And so we're just going after that. And then we're gonna do satin varnish number 3, because as soon as I start getting in my own way and undoing stuff, they'll lock it down. So then this is after the second one, and satin varnish number 3. Oh, I worked on the teeth here. So I stained the teeth with the yellow. That helps. I've done something to the tongue, like colored that in. I had to brighten it up, and then I had to bring it back down. Okay, and then we do it again. And this is the thing, you can just keep, the more you do to it, the more you will be rewarded when you keep doing this. And then we get through this, and we're at satin varnish number 4. And this is the whole spread of the whip shots. So we start at this crazy thing and we end at that crazy thing. Yeah. So in conclusion, underpainting. Don't know if it's worth it. It's kind of interesting now. Maybe. Could be. I think most of the effort is shown in doing the gouache on top of acrylics. But I really think that it's this paint, varnish, adding depth to these models that I've been doing. And so yeah, that's my painting process. Trying to be respectful of everyone's time. Yeah.
Wonderfest, the Hulk bust that was there, that was amazing. They said there was 44 layers.
44 layers of varnish?
Transparent. He kept laying it on.
Yeah.
Imagine you had varnishes too, but he kept laying it. I mean, it was.
The scary part is like you can't really bring it back up. Like there on the tongue, I did layer some just regular acrylic paint over it to bring it back up so that I could knock it back down. Yeah, when you don't get your highlights back, really, once you transparent, once you start putting them down.
Never really.
Oh, really? That's been, maybe it's just my process.
What do you mean by that, your highlights, you lose your?
I lose my highlights because I'm always shading down, usually, or I'm adding color. And the color tends to be a lower value than like my highlight, like my peak highlights. And so if I cover the whole thing in blue, no part of it is going to be as bright again. And that's just kind of my process is I start fine, knock it down.
You want to end, this is kind of a question.
Yeah.
When you're building up at the end, you do want to end with a highlight, right?
Yeah, but I don't have a way to really build back up the process. Like I was experimenting with that on the tongue. I think it kind of worked, but I'm quite mustered the bravery test, like to do it on a large scale, like on the forehead or somewhere where you would need a lot more highlights, or like a lip blend or something like that. It's still something I think I could play around with a little bit more. This is where we're at today. Yeah.
So I paint exclusively oils over acrylics. And I found when I started doing that, you have to, because oils are, for the most part, translucent.
Yeah.
They're not really opaque enough to cover plastic or resin or even primer. You got, especially light colors, like yellows and reds, the undercoat has to be almost exactly like the oil color.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just doesn't really take, you really can't get.
Yeah, it like influences the color. So
Yes, I don't know how the guy does the radically different undercoats and it doesn't bleed through the flesh colored oil paint for a face. I would think that would be too strong, it would bleed through that translucent oil paint.
I don't know how he does it either, because anytime I ever put a white, because you saw just stark white over that magenta, it's just come out chalky.
Yeah.
And I've used different whites. I've used titanium white, zinc white, well, maybe just those two. And it's always just come out weirdly. It is not what's right.
He shows in the beginning of the book the oils to use, I don't remember what the brand
Well,
was.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've tried, Grumbacher, Winter Newton, there aren't that many oil paints on the market that are just, I mean, some guys like, Jimenez guy sells his own, but it's probably made by somebody else, If you have trouble with the oils now, is it the smell of the paint itself or the vinegar?
it's the thinner. So
So
I can't
I-
use enamels either.
I used, this stuff, Windsor Newton's called Sansador.
Yeah,
That supposedly, because it's a French word
Stands
for
up.
no odor, it has no odor. The other stuff was, which I use now, is terpenoids, which you can get at the art supply
Yeah.
store. That doesn't seem to have a smell either.
It's very, very
I haven't,
minimal.
Yeah.
haven't tried the terps yet. I have used Gamsol, which is their low odor, no odor thing. But when I've used enamel paints before, the Gamsol is not strong enough to remove enamel washes like Tamiya's. And so I've had to go to low odor mineral spirits like from the hardware store. And my problem is it makes me, I have like an actual reaction to it. So even with the Gamsol, if I will start like breaking out a rash, like where the vapor is around me. Even working on it in the airbrush HUD, I still have reactions to it. I'll have the mask on and I'll break out. You'll see exactly.
So it isn't the smell on, it's the actual.
It's the actual, yeah, the vapor and material. Yeah.
Could you describe, like earlier in your slideshow, the teeth were very white.
Yeah.
Could you describe kind of the process of how you do teeth?
Yeah. So with teeth, these I wanted to be bright, bright-ish, and I used, I think it's color called Bright Ivory, and I mixed it with a little bit of the Titanium Mars Pale, which is a little bit of the pink color. But when it's against all these other colors, it just looks like a bright ivory, like an off-white ivory color. I've also used really high, like flesh color highlight stuff for teeth. Basically, you just don't want straight white.
Right.
Just some kind of, I just reach for the most convenient off-white color. And then,
Well, to compliment you, I mean, it looks like there's tartar on the teeth.
yeah,
Like they're tea or coffee stain. I mean,
Yeah,
very
so-
realistic looking.
yeah, so later, what I do on a couple of the other ones, I've used the gouache and I've done a layer of yellow. This is actually my palette I used for this project. So all this stuff, I think I used this, I think this is cadmium yellow.
Yeah.
I put that in there. You just slap it on like at the gum line, push it around. I locked it down, and then I did my second pass with the gouache on that. I think I used this color, so I mixed up like a brown, like a more tea stain, nicotine stain, whatever you want to call it,
Okay.
brown color. And that was it for the teeth.
Okay.
But yeah, these are all the gouache colors for this project. Yeah. And then the other part is I do a lot of swatches and color testing too. This is worth doing. I'm doing a project right now where I'm not doing this and I hate it. So this is, I think, definitely, I have the frog color tests in here somewhere. Anyway, any other questions?
Is that just a regular notebook? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
this
not-
is just
it's
a
regular
mixed
paper.
media. This is a mixed media sketchbook.
Oh, okay,
So
gotcha,
there you go. You can pick these up anywhere.
okay.
It tends to withstand the water a little bit better.
Not,
It
not
does still.
seeping through or anything like that? or-
No, but I'm not drenching it
Okay.
either. So it does curl. It curls up a little bit, but it's not. This is a test notebook, so
I was looking online, the Mr. Hyde comes in a little can.
Yeah.
So the question I have, because I've seen other similar products to that, and they tend to be affected by gravity. So if you were to put them on, does this also have that same?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
if you, first time I learned of this was like masked something and did all the camouflage and didn't want to paint it that night, I come in and it's like, it all fell down.
Yeah, on this, when I masked this, I gave it this,
Yeah.
I fought with that so hard.
Okay, so, all right.
It would droop down. So this, I push all this in with a toothpick to try to get it to seat right and stay in there, but it will start, you gotta work fast.
Yeah, you can't let it sit.
Yeah, you can't like do it the day before.
Right. Yeah, I learned that.
Cause this will start pulling away and drooping and sagging, and this will start getting in there. And this was like, you see it's drooping over the lip.
Something you may try, and I've had decent luck with, Bob Cobb suggested to me years ago, is, it's an artist kneadable eraser,
Yeah,
and it doesn't, it's stiff enough that it sticks reasonably well, but it doesn't sag.
Well, blue tack would work too.
Blue tack probably
blue
would.
tack.
And that'll stay exactly where you put it for months. I mean,
I like this, I think it's, I don't know, it's easy.
You're aware of the
enough.
limitations, obviously.
Yeah. It works for me, but I'm not masking probably nearly as much as you guys are masking.
Question on your clear coats, how do you determine, do you just work one spot and then you're gonna have to work another color on top of that so that determines your clear coat? Or you try to get the whole area, as many on that, that layer, and then clear coat the entire thing?
So, when I was learning, I would kind of concentrate on like, okay, I'm just gonna do the mouth. And then I would work through the process, but that gets really tedious, because the beholder probably has 7 or more clear coats on it. And a lot of that is just because I was taking it in sections. To be more efficient, you have to bounce around all over the place. And this is, oh, by the way, so I did time myself since I have the video footage of this. This is, I think, my favorite part of this is that all this only took 3.5 hours of painting time.
Oh, wow.
So I thought that was pretty cool, but I learned to be a little bit more efficient on this, and so I am bouncing around. I could have done the teeth, probably more of the teeth when I did it, but the paint I use is really, really matte, and I thought it would grab too hard, so I wanted the satin after I got the teeth painted. Yeah, so for 3.5 hours of work, I think this is a pretty good result. I'm happy with that. Any other questions? Okay. Thanks for listening.